Story 1. Road work. When Connor arrived at the gas station, he exited the car with a speed that surprised even him. He took a few quick steps, almost at a run, before turning back towards the car. Under the garish sodium lights of the service station, the little blue sedan looked a sickly greenish-gray. It looked squat and malign in its stillness. The little throbbing headache at the base of his skull seemed to diminish with every step, and he began to catch his breath. He took the phone from his pocket and raised it high into the night sky, waving it from side to side like a signal flag. Nothing. The signal meter defied him by remaining empty. Not even a flashing roaming message. Connor scowled at the little phone and thrust it back into his pocket. He glanced around at the station to solitary pumps and a closed convenience market, an isolated island of pale yellow light in the dark of the North Carolina forest. The silhouettes of the trees bit sharply into the starry night sky, surrounding him like a ring of teeth. The grating hum of electricity mingled with the crackling of insects from the woods beyond, drifting in the warm summer night air. Jutting from the side of the shuttered market was a scraped and listing payphone, its metal stalk visibly bent from some long-ago impact. Connor approached it, digging a quarter from his pocket and gripping the scarred plastic handset. For a moment, nothing happened, and the sense of isolation deepened, like the ground being pulled out from under him, and the panic returned. A series of quick clicks bit into his ear, and the dial tone chimed. His fingers felt numb as he dialed. Even at a few hours past midnight, Reynolds answered on the first ring. Yes. Reynolds' rolling baritone was silky and unmawed by the late hour. Who is this? Sam Connor. He was unable to keep the quaver out of his voice, and he had a sudden urge to look back towards the car, suddenly afraid that it might have moved, or left him there altogether. This isn't the phone I gave you. Reynolds' liquid voice darkened, almost imperceptibly. It's a payphone. Ain't got signal out here. Middle of fucking nowhere. Listen, Ren, Is something the matter, Connor? Connor bristled at the mild, calculated condescension in the older man's tone, and inhaled slowly, measuring his next words with caution. Well, shit, I don't rightly know, Ren, but I got a real bad feeling about this. Where are you? Service station. Just got off the freeway, about to head south through Nadahala. And what is the matter, Connor? Like I said, there's something fucked up about this one. Didn't like the guy I picked the car up from. Don't like whatever it is that's in the fucking trunk. I know this sounds fucking stupid, but it's giving me a headache. I feel like I can smell it, but I know I can't. Something just feels rotten about it. I mean rotten. Rotten. There was a long silence on the other end, and Connor knew that Reynolds was unmoved. Even as Connor said the words, he knew how stupid it sounded. Connor, the old man said at last, we've worked together for a long time. I like you, but you've never given a shit about what you deliver. What's the strangest thing I've had you carry? The heart. Connor answers without hesitation, seeing the white styrofoam cooler steaming with ice, strapped in the front seat like a baby's car seat. Yes, you also once delivered several pounds of heroin. Did you know that at the time? Not till after the fact, because it's better that way, isn't it, Connor? Reynolds paused, the smooth rhythms of his voice already calming the younger man. It's better if you don't know. The man you picked the car up in his own way is as trustworthy and reliable as you are. I understand why you might bristle at him, given his unfortunate-looking visage, but he is like you, a trusted contractor, and discreet. I implore you both for your discretion. Do you understand, Connor? Yes, sir. Good. I think you understand why I am offering so much more for this delivery, and why it has to be late at night and on the back roads. Our client this time has specific instructions, and we're not getting paid to wonder why. We're not getting paid to pry, I understand. It galled Connor. How stupid he'd sounded, how stupid he'd been, panicking and calling Reynolds late in the night. I know you do, and I know this one is odd, son. I do. I hope you believe me when I say that it makes me as uncomfortable as it makes you. I do it myself, but no one is as good as you. I'm smart enough to know and to trust the best. Thank you, Ren. No, Connor. Thank you. Now get back on the road. When you drop off the car, the client will have his own men to take care of the package, and then you can sleep, and you won't have to work for a year. All for one night's drive. Okay, I gotcha. Connor, I trust you wouldn't, and forgive me if this is insulting, but don't open the trunk, okay? It wouldn't help. The package is locked up anyway, and it needs to stay locked because the client wants it locked. Of course, Ren. Look, I'm awful sorry for calling. I guess I just got spooked. Something fierce. Not at all. That's what I'm here for. Now get on the road, Connor, and call me when it's done. Reynolds hung up before Connor could reply, and he returned the handset to the cradle. Keys in hand, Connor returned to the car, driving himself forward even as his newfound confidence waned as he approached. The phantom motor, more like a memory of a scent than an actual smell, returned, something sweet and corrupt. As he turned the key to start the engine, the gentle pain in the back of his head returned, rising slowly. He gritted his teeth and pulled out of the service station. The Natahala National Forest closed around the two-lane road, and the darkness swallowed the service station behind him. Connor tried to focus on the destination, the route laid out, the starry sky outside. Anything but the trunk. It worked. For a few minutes, Connor's blood coursed with caffeine and a tiny dose of some high-grade speed, just enough to keep him awake. But still, after a half hour on the dark road, his eyes began to flutter. At first, they simply felt dry, and he batted his eyes to wet them, but they began to stay closed longer, seeming to stick at the zenith of each blink. The tires hit the yellow reflectors of the center line, and with a sick jolt of adrenaline, he realized he'd been drifting. Ahead, the headlights illuminated 100 yards of road and picked out reflectors for another 100. The glowing dots staced out in front of him like tracer bullets, outpacing the lit road and marking his path into the darkness. They curved upward ahead, signaling a rise in the road before it could be seen. Connor focused on the reflectors, letting them swim by him like the gentle dripping of water. He watched the phantom line of glowing points dip and rise with the road, and then, with numb disbelief, watched it whip upwards, above his line of sight, twisting skyward. Connor awed absurdly of a sharp upward rise, wondering if the car could take such a steep ascent. Then the line whipped like a snake, striking across the night sky, and his foot struck the brake with all the force that his terror could muster. The car slid to the right, and he corrected, pulling back onto the road and jerking to a halt. From the trunk there was a hollow and dull thumping noise, and Connor's heart surged. Ahead, the road was perfectly flat, the yellow reflecting lights fixed back in reality. With the car no longer in motion, Connor's guts sang to him to leave, to flee into the relative safety of the dark woods. His hands clutched the steering wheel, bloodless in their intensity. From the trunk came another small thud, and Connor's heart seemed to stop. Connor was out of the car before he knew it, the keys rattling in his grip. The fear had become something like a manic curiosity now. If he could simply see the thing in the trunk, he could move on, could start driving, could do another line and stay awake long enough to dump the fucking thing and just sleep. The trunk opened with greased efficiency. The smell caught him first. It was the phantom smell from before, but now it felt cloyingly real, clinging to his nostrils. Putrid meat, dead dog in the hot summer road, burst belly and cloddy-eyed rot. He gagged, choking on the intensity. When he blinked the tears from his eyes, he could see what was inside, but could not understand it first. Shiny emergency blankets, silvery on one side and gold on the other, reflecting the trunk's meager light, were wrapped loosely around a large, man-sized bundle. Connor's hands were peeling back the metallic sheets before he had time to think. The drive to know almost painful. Even as his mind screamed what he already knew, he was carrying a fucking corpse. Beneath the first shining layer was an woolen army blanket, sodden in black and oily fluids. The smell was even stronger now. Connor debated, briefly stopping there, but he reached out and peeled back the blackened sheet, feeling the wet fluids adhere to his slender fingers. The corpse was naked to the waist and horridly disfigured. One arm ended in a shredded stump, an unmistakable bruised and pierced field. A buckshot wound patterned the gray and sunken chest. The head was cracked open. One hand-sized chunk of skull, clotted and matted with thinning gray hair, lying next to it. Black and rotten teeth grimaced through a frozen rictus of pain. One dull, dark eye stared up at him. Around the neck was a black leather collar, cinched tight against the mottled gray skin. What looked like metallic wires in delicate filigree curved across the leather, tracing a circuit board-like design. At the clasp was a small metal box where the wires met and joined, encircling a small green lead light that winked rhythmically. Connor stared, disbelieving for some time. The silent forests around him, and his eyes held fixed on the corpse, the dead hobo, with an electric collar in the trunk. He wanted to be angry. He knew he should be terrified, but it simply didn't make sense, and he could muster no single emotion. Despite the hundreds vying for release, the headache pulsed sharply, and it pushed him out of his trance, where he found himself staring off into the woods. He shut the trunk. After wrapping up the body and wiping off his hands, he found himself back in the driver's seat, staring ahead at the flat road, his breathing oddly calm. He was tired again, and the nameless dancing fear was far at the periphery. It was simple now. He had to deliver the car. That was all there was to it. He sped now, against his own rules and instincts, taking the forested roads with reckless velocity. Music cranked loud to hammer him awake. It didn't work. The drowsy fog seemed to tug harder at him now, and the ticking regularity of tall trees and the rhythm of the white reflective paint on the road beat out a tattoo of hypnotic regularity. It was a while before he came to realize that the radio was no longer on. There was only the steady, lulling white noise of the engine, the hiss of the tires peeling away from the asphalt, and the knocking from the trunk, a steady beat of impacts, sharp raps, fist on metal. Connor closed his eyes tight, grinding his teeth together. He pressed the accelerator as if he could speed himself bodily away from the trunk and its cargo, but he felt it speeding with him, pursuing him with a matched intensity. When he opened his eyes, his heart leapt into his throat. The forest was gone. He was on a four-lane highway, but the terrain was foreign to him. He resisted the urge to stop sharp again, tried to quell the hammering in his chest, but he could settle the panic, animal desperation. Everything was wrong, despite the massive road. He was the only driver, neither direction. There were no road signs, no mile markers. He'd lost time on long drive before, but he always stayed on course, coming out of the trance precisely where he wanted to be, and he'd never been lost. Connor knew every thoroughfare and backwoods trail for 100 miles in every direction, but he could not tell where he was. The clock on the dashboard proclaimed that he'd lost mere minutes. He'd been a dozen miles from any road of this size. It's not fair, he thought, and then repeated it again, aloud. His voice was pinched and thin. A child's protest. That's not possible. The unbroken field of blacktop and reflective plastic and paint rolled away beneath him and behind. The trunk was now silent, but still lingered malignant behind him. He grabbed the telephone beside him and flipped it open. Nothing. Connor only had one course of action that he could see. Take the first exit, find another service station, reorient, deliver the fucking car. The little thread of hope, woven by as solid a plan as he could muster, tugged at him, and he pushed the little blue sedan even harder. Together, driver and passenger hurtled down the road. He felt a surge of elation as up ahead an orange sign broke the monotony of the phantom freeway. It resolved from the gloom as he approached, tall black letters reading roadwork ahead. It wasn't what he'd hoped for, but it was a change and something to break the impossible blankness of the unknown road. Ahead, the left lane was blocked off by a sloping line of bright orange traffic cones, pushing Connor one lane over. The line continued, disappearing into the dark. Connor strained to see the lights and hear the sound of construction vehicles. The late night shift adding a fresh layer of tar. Nothing. The line of cones veered again, blocking of the next lane. Connor merged with it, feeling his hopes seep away into the dark. The line moved again, forcing him into the far right lane. Finally, as he understood it would be before he even saw it, the plastic traffic cones blocked of the last lane, and then the shoulder. One bright orange line, bisecting and blocking any further progress. Connor slowed, ingrained instincts to obey all rules of the road screaming as they tried to process this logical contradiction. It didn't take long for him to decide. He knew he didn't want to be out here, alone and unmoving, with the thing in the back. The thing that might not be dead. If he was rolling, he was at least getting closer to being done with it all. He gunned the engine, brought the car back up to speed, and plowed through the line of cones. They folded beneath his wheels, tossed high into the air, and illuminated by the red of his brake lights as they bounced off the road into the night. Everything in Connor's career had been focused on not drawing attention. He'd not been pulled over since he was caught joyriding at age 13 with a phone book beneath his seat and a tin can tied to his foot to reach the pedals. He'd made a career of escaping notice, but now he found himself wishing to see flashing blue and reds lights behind him. He didn't know how he'd explain driving into a roadwork zone, speeding, or the hideous rack of flesh in the trunk. he didn't care. He'd give anything to see another person. If he could just reach Reynolds, hear that calming voice. Ahead, the 4 dotted lines of reflective paint vanished. The 4 lanes evaporated into a featureless plain of smooth black tar. Connor felt empty. Beyond shock, hot tears welled up in his eyes. Without the lines of the road, he suddenly felt he was drifting, veering of the road. Impulsively, he turned sharp to the right. The smooth field of blacktop spread away into the distance of his headlights. Fuck this. The sound of his own voice shocked him, causing him to leap slightly, and he let his foot of the pedal. The car drifted to a stop. He opened the door and stepped out onto the black plain. The brittle pain in his head flared as he did. But he knew that if he could just get away from the car, he could think straight. He picked a direction and began to walk. The night sky was starless, the horizon featureless. He looked behind him once, seeing the pool of bright light where the car still sat. His head throbbed, and he picked up his pace, jogging now. The night air was clean and sweet, and although the throbbing in his head still continued, he felt refreshed by the freedom of being on his own feet. After what felt like several miles walking blind across the asphalt field, he began to worry if Reynolds would ever hire him again. Such a relatively mundane concern, absurd in his current situation, hooked him like an anchor. He was hallucinating, he realized. Although he couldn't tell where his senses became unreliable, he knew that was the only possible answer. Then, sooner or later, he would stop, and he'd likely never work as a courier again, would likely have ruined Reynolds' business with his strange, wealthy client that paid to have the corpses of transients shipped across backwoods roads. But so fucking what? With a dry chuckle, he realized that Reynolds would be better off without that sort of client, even if the old man didn't see it that way at first, because who knows what the client would ask of him next. And hell, he'd find work again, even if he had to uproot and find a new backyard to get familiar with, because he was the best goddamn driver there was. Up ahead, he saw a light, a tiny deviation in the darkness, and he began to run, a smile spreading across his face as he approached. The skin on the back of his neck seemed prickle, and the icy point of the headache pushed deeper. He knew what he was looking at, but he still couldn't accept it. It was the sound that made it real. The engine he heard first, then the other sounds, the chirping ring of his cell phone on the front seat, the bleating of the car's open door alarm, and then, at last, the steady tapping from the trunk. He didn't want to look at it, wanted to turn away and run off into the dark forever, rather than confront the car and his evil fucking cargo just a few feet in front of him when it should be miles away. He picked one errant thought out of the confused and desperate whirlwind of his mind. The phone, it was still ringing. He pressed in closer to the car, feeling its presence like a thick fog, blacker than the darkness around it. It seemed to yield to his incursion, allowing him to shut off the engine and grab the phone. He clicked the phone open and pressed it to his ear, trying to ignore the noises from the trunk. "Hello," he whispered into the receiver. "Connor." It was Reynolds' voice, but something was wrong. The sharp, precise diction, the smooth tone, some indefinable quality was gone. "Connor, listen to me, oh Jesus, Ren, I think I'm in a lot of trouble. Did you unlock the package?" "Fuck no, sir. But I don't think that matters. You have to check. As long as it's still locked, nothing else matters. I don't think I can look in there. I think it's still alive. Connor, you must." Connor felt the heat rising in him again, the paralyzing anger at the absolute bullshit unfairness of it all, and he yelled wordlessly at the sky. Before shakily approaching the rear of the car, he slid the key in, fingers trembling uncontrollably, and swung the trunk open. The smell hit him, but it had changed. The rot had gave way to some predator musk that put Connor's hair on end. The silver blankets were shredded and pushed aside. The thing inside was almost unrecognizable. The shredded arm was now a thin and reedy limb, pink and newborn with too many jointed elbows. The buckshot wound was almost invisible, and Connor watched in horror as one of the few remaining holes disgorged a small lead bulb before closing up around it. Both eyes stared out at Connor, one shrunken and glistening, but filled with malevolent light. It grinned, revealing not the black and rotted teeth he'd remembered, but a shark's grin. Connor found himself on his back, not remembering falling, scuttling feebly away from the car. The headache was suddenly gone, and a confusing flood of stimuli crashed against the beachhead of his senses. He was still in the woods. The car was pulled off to the side of the road. In the sudden painless clarity, the broken parts of the last hours fell into place. He remembered opening the trunk that first time, seeing the body. He remembered stripping the collar from the corpse, tossing it into the woods. He remembered wondering why he'd done it even as his fingers closed around it. He remembered forgetting. He remembered wondering why he'd found himself staring off into the woods. He still couldn't find his footing, could only crawl away from the open trunk, the thing now rearing upward, silhouetted by the wan light of the trunk's single bulb, one of the two long limbs, with the impossible joints slid out, a spider emerging from a drain. The phone was still in his hand, and he saw, without any real surprise, that it was still searching fruitlessly for a connection. He tossed it away, using his hands to pull himself upright. It was out now, crouched and waiting. Its dark eyes flickered in the moonlight. Connor raised himself slowly to unsteady feet. The thing mirrored him, extending to its full and horrid height, to bloody scraps of pants clinging to its pale and now unmarked frame. Disgorged of its hideous cargo, the little car now looked like sanctuary, like hope, like freedom, but the thing stood between him and any chance of escape. It leaned forward toward him, the shark teeth glistening with spit. Connor began to laugh, a hopeless and mournful sound, his limbs locking in fear as it reached out for him, its spider-legged hands curling around his arms. Its touch was cold, and the knobby fingers felt like the tightening of vices. The thing laughed with him. Story 2. Candle Cove Experiences. Tales of the Laughingstock. Occurring to the fact that most kiddie shows have turned up dead ends, one show, Candle Cove, has made an impact here. I made myself hunt down whatever cast remained of the show, regardless of their fear. I wanted to know everything about this show, but in the process, I came to understand that there hid something much darker aboard it than just what I was told and what I had heard. I have posted some of my thoughts into the page points to have a feel for the interviewees here. I note that those being interviewed are indicated by the quotation marks around them. You may notice that a censor will appear. I did that so no one may want to bombard me with questions and such. It's a privacy thing, and I'm sorry if I offended the readers. With that, I present to you this page in the lore, Candle Cove Experiences, Tales of the Laughingstock, DIY1 my first knowing of the Candle Cove lore came out on the Net Nostalgia forum back some time. However, many of the episodes have never been found, and many of the props are either long gone or spread out over the world. However, after this mention of the show, I had to dig further into it. What I discovered over my round trip was something dark residing within the studios itself. The show, originally called Pirate Place, was loosely based on an old, quite lost short story called The Knickerbocker's Tale from 1767, about a little Irish boy arriving to a land of pirates to find his way back home. The story's writer, a man believed to be named Colin Cochrane, vanished into the dark. Stories about it say that he was a madman who married well and had a daughter who vanished without a trace near his home. This inspired him to write the story, and shortly after, he was found dead by his wife. The story was lost for several years until in 1970, when a local TV station in Ashland found the rights to the story and converted it into a children's series. I managed to find some of the studio's workers, but none of them were able to tell me about it. Well, there was one day, too, asking this woman to nearly relive her nightmare of 1971 was nearly impossible, but thankfully she decided to, reluctantly anyways. Okay, Miss, I'm not comfortable giving my last name or my first. Okay then, mind if I call you Jane? No, I don't. Okay then. Well, Jane, I understand you had a part in the kiddie show Candle Cove, correct? Set designer. Well, part of it. I helped in the construction of the laughingstock and many of the characters as well. I see. Was it a good experience? Oh, very. It was a great one, until towards the end of the show itself. How so? Well, that damn Grimes, that's what it was. Grimes, Emerson Grimes, the show's director? Is there another Grimes you know on the series? Here she lit a cigarette, something that from her appearance and fear of Grimes foretold I actually expected from her. Well, how did he manage to scare you? How did he? He was a nut job, a loony. He forced a 5-year-old girl, Jody Silver, to near heat stroke, change scripts. Everything was fine until the show grew darker and darker. How dark was it getting? Now this I kind of knew about, the infamous question to the skin taker and his answer to Janice. When a skeleton named the skin taker proclaims that the reason for his mouth to move weird is for grinding your skin, you will have some problems. Grimes was insane, but the last straw was the last episode of the series. I knew about this and moved on to her designs of the show. She explained that it was a damned kiddie show that turned into a puppet show from hell overnight. She wanted to end the conversation, but not before I asked about any surviving members or crew. There are a few of them still around, but you will have to find them on your own. DIY3 I did, however, manage to find Jody Silver, who played Janice on the show. Now, an adult of 45, she resides with her husband, Damon Louie, and her 2 kids. If you see her now, she has lost all of that childhood spunk that she had on the show. She works as a writer of pirate stories and haunted mysteries. I managed to record on tape an interview with her. Are you Miss Jody Silver? Why, I haven't been called that in years. Yes, I am Jody Silver, but people call me Jody Louie nowadays. Oh, I'm sorry about the mix-up. I'm censored and I'm writing a book on an old kiddie show you used to be on. Jesus Christ, please tell me you are joking. It was here that I noticed she seemed agitated at the sound of a book being written on something she was trying so hard to put behind her. It's no joke, Mrs. Louis. Well, I won't warn you that you are a total nutcase for doing it. That show has given me bad dreams, ruined my childhood, and I have even had therapy because of it. I don't wish to speak about. Please, Jody, just one interview. That's all I'm asking for, just one. Hell, if you have to go through therapy again for it, I'll personally pay out of pocket. It was here she stood long and hard. Christ, fine, fine. Meet me here for an interview. With that, she handed me a card with her address on it. I promised she wouldn't regret this, but I had a feeling that she already was. DAY4. Hello there, Mrs. Louis. Well, hi there. Come on in. Her house wasn't big, but not small either. I could tell she had little ones running about from the sounds of kiddie shows floating faintly from the television set and many toes scattered about. It was like trying to walk through a forest of mousetraps without setting one off. Eventually we got to the small dining area of the home with a good outlook over the water. A place to dream dreams. Okay, now about the show. Well, censored, it started out as a dream come true. I was a huge fan of shows like Jumbo's Circus, Sunshine City, and Fisherman Fred. And I really wanted to be on a kiddie show. I got my wish when I heard the studio was looking for a young girl to play the role of Janice for their new show, and sure there were many little girls who wanted the role so badly. So I did my best to win the studio over, which happened. I love the idea of the show. I did my very best to do everything right. Turned out you should be careful of what you wish for. Why is that now? I really don't want to tell you, but I must. You see, on set, some changes started happening. Grimes would change scripts. Things seemed to be a bit scary. And for the first episode to seem so mean and such was odd for a kid's show. And then that horrible last episode. What episode? The last episode of the first season. While censored, you really need to brush up on your history of this. There were 2 seasons of the show. The final episode of the second season was the worst ever. I tentatively and carefully asked her to tell me. Screams, just screams. Everyone screaming, and that sick man Grimes destroying the sets. He told everyone to just scream, and loudly, many did. It got to the point where one of the actors, the man who played the scan taker referring to Michael Colin, started to bleed. He nearly choked on his own blood. I bawled my eyes out. It was there she started to cry, all of these memories coming back to her. She asked me to stop, and I did. I explained I was sorry to bring back these memories. I never meant that as my intention. I remember the skin taker. He hung, his head tilted and low, his jaw hanging from one socket and parts of his arms torn off. DAY5 I left to go find Michael Colin. When I came across a yard sale, I know. Creepypasta, right? I asked them about some old recorded tapes I saw, and they said they were mostly shows for their son, and he was young. I noticed that some of them were from Candle Cove, although they were very smudged and probably in horrible condition. I bought the videos from them anyway. Now it's probably here where you would expect me to say that I popped in the tape and evil shit happened. Blah, 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 yada, yada. Satan appeared threatening to rape my soul, and Pirate Percy came at me in a dream as a cannibalistic demon, something like a creepypasta-ish event, right? That's not the case, folks. I popped it in, and sure enough, static. But eventually it came on. Sure, it was jumpy and it was a static juncture, but it was the show nonetheless. It was an odd first show, being that Janice was made fun of so horribly, and that Percy would proclaim for her to not kill him, and the thought of kidnapping on the show was an odd tidbit to be in there. But I had to continue. Sadly, I didn't make it past episode 2. Day 8, there was a gap due to a break for a while. I pursued my interest in finding any contact with crew members or cast member aside from Jane and Jody. I managed to find a Mr. Walter Shea, who was a stagehand on the show. I managed to write this letter. Dear Mr. Shea, my name is censored, and I am writing a book entitled Candle Cove Experiences, Tales of the Laughingstock. I am interviewing whatever remaining crew and cast there are from the show. I was wondering if we could arrange a possible meeting with one another, or an actual interview, of course. If that is all right with you, I can be contacted at the Nohoma Motel address censored. Thank you for your time. I received a letter some time later. Dear censored, you may be the dumbest person I have ever met. Why in the hell would you dare to bring up such a subject that has haunted me and everyone else on that show? Do you know the absolute tragedy that has accumulated from that? But it's also a way to get things off of my chest from it. I will meet you for an interview, but what I say about that show is the 100% truth. Eyewitness, you must not judge what I will say. If you do, I'll make sure that your journey will end with me, and closed is a card for where to meet me and at what time. I am not a snobbish man, but I won't do this again. Sincerely, Walter Shea. Day 15, I met with Walter Shea later on within the week. Having to time it right, I left after day 10 for Tulsa. It took some time to watch the other episodes, but I managed. They did seem darker. As Jane had stated before, some of them are getting hard to watch, but I have to keep watching. The infamous To Grind Your Skin episode came on. That was the worst. It's one thing with a shitty motel TV that makes every program like watching something from the 70s. It's another when the damn tape keeps jumping and statusing out every 2 minutes. I felt like those people trying to watch porn on their old boxes, if you know what I mean. The Scramblers. Anyhow, I got to meet him where he wanted. He came in on a wheelchair, explaining how he was paralyzed. Okay, now Mr. Shea, you said you had information. Yeah, that whole damn show is a curse. What do you mean by that? You only could dream of what I mean. It's exactly how I said it. That show is a curse. I don't understand. Really, I don't. I broke my leg on that show when a damn ladder fell off and smashed on my leg after I fell. I felt something when that hit, like something pushed that ladder down. Then the episodes got darker. There were 2 episodes that never aired in season 2. Those 2 were the worst of the worst. What happened? That Grimes in one episode as Janice, implied, of course, to be cannibalized by the skin taker in a dream. Another one was to reveal that Nathan had been kidnapped and turned into part of a cape for that bastard. Hell, Grimes wanted to fucking have Janice killed and skinned alive on camera. The end of the series was to have continued with Melrose winding up in the world looking for Janice. Me and the cast had to make sure that never happened, so we shot those ideas down every time. This pissed him off. I think that's why he did that final episode, you know, the screaming episode. You mean he wanted to show a little girl being skinned alive? Yes, and that fucker is a monster too. He didn't vanish. I will tell you something I have never told anyone. Go on. After we finished filming that episode, I went back to get something of mine. I saw Grimes pleading to the set pieces as if they were all alive. He was pleading that he did his job right. He made sure. He started ripping his hair and teeth out, screaming, trying to get whatever it was away from killing him. He fell backwards and hung himself on a cord. The sound of his neck snapping, God, it still haunts me. They said that he just vanished. You're stating he lost it and accidentally killed himself? Yes. Now I knew something horrible did happen. It was freaking me out, and now I wanted to stop. But I had to know what happened to Grimes. They never found the body. I got rid of it. I couldn't let them think that he had just wanted to make things happen to himself. I had to do something, out of the decency of my being at least. What did you do? I buried him. I took his old, lanky body out to the woods behind the studio, and I buried him. I told myself there was nothing to fear but fear itself, but there was something there. I walked back through the studio, and I felt something eerie present in the skin-taker puppet, like it was watching me. I got out of there as quick as I could. Some time later, that damned final episode aired, and I will never forget what I saw. It was horrible. I was afraid of the show now. What was lying ahead of the episodes for me? I had some more stops to go to, but I advised myself that if things get too deep, I would stop there and work with what I have. Day 19, it has been hard to sleep. I keep having the same nightmare. The skin taker coming at me, threatening to grind my skin. It's hard to wake up to just static because I can hear that fucking theme song in my head every time I do. I gave up a little, but I had to keep going. I made a list of people who claimed to have items from the series. Some proved to be idiots who made the items themselves. Indications were of the modern look to them. However, there were some who did have items. The items I have gotten so far are listed. One of the skin takers classifies the arm of Pirate Percy, the head, albeit somewhat in tatters, of the skin taker. One of the eyes of horrible Horus. Tooth belonging to the laughing stock, the most unique item I found. And I swear to you I found this one at a house in Missouri. The original owner was a man named Kyle Bartlett. His daughter, Judith, was nice enough to show me part of a collection he had. He had the original skin taker head. Now I thought it was a fake since the jaw was intact, whereas Jane had stated that the jaw was partially torn off. As it turns out, Kyle was one of the crewmen on the show. He loved the skin taker as a villain. When he found that it was so destroyed, he put much time inserting the jaw back in its place. I asked to have it, but she denied that request. I did see that it was missing one eye and its fame hat. I brought these items back and put them inside by myself. The head is now complete, but she allowed no photography or video to be made, stating that her father wouldn't want his favorite to be spoiled. She sounded like a mother to a child. I had to keep up. My search led me to New York, where one Mr. Michael Colin lived, the very same Michael Colin who voiced the skin taker on the show, the same Michael Colin whose son, Trevor Colin, was murdered in the fall of 1981. Meeting him was hard. He wanted nothing to do with this, but I had to interview him. Really, I did. He refused for some time, until he decided to. Hello there, Mr. Colin. Yeah. Hi there. I am sorry about this. Must not be really sorry to make a man who lost his son 10 years after that goddamn episode had aired talk about this fucking show. The nightmares still haunt me. Every night I can see that episode playing in my head. I'm sorry about your son and the nightmares. He took a shot of Jack Daniels and said, "Don't be. Not your fault this happened. My wife left me 3 years after he passed on. I had a dream the very night it happened. It was the skin taker holding a knife, chasing him and brutally murdering him. It's odd that he was in a neighborhood where a local gang known as the Walking Skulls just so happened to be in, but they don't use knives in their crimes. So it was someone else. I never knew that. Never asked me to tell you, and that damn episode screwed my voice up, which is why I sound so different than how I should. I'm sorry to hear that. Understand. You see, Grimes wanted the show to be dark. I thought he was nuts. I didn't want to do the grind your skin episode at all since I read that damn script. He threatened to fire me, and I couldn't do that. I had a wife and a kid on the way. I couldn't lose work like that, so I did it. And fortunately, I see. What happened the night the last episode premiered? He sighed, took another shot of the Jack, and told me. After that damned episode, I got the hell out of there. I went directly home to get all that I could. I grabbed my wife and my infant son and got the hell out of town. I left that damn place with dignity and got to a nearby township. I had the misfortune to be in the hospital in time for that final fucking episode to air. I had no choice but to watch it, and I regret doing so. Oh dear, I'm so sorry to hear that. If you want to, I could leave here. We could finish if you'd like for it to. Sounds good. I'm sorry. I just can't do this. I'm just sorry. I left him there, crying, actually regretting that I'd left him. I wish I hadn't. Day 27. I was reading a newspaper, and I skimmed the obituaries. I am unfortunate to say that Mr. Michael Colon committed suicide some time ago. He shot himself in the head. He left a suicide note. The NYPD stated that it was a letter to me. It had my name and address on it. Dear Censored, I'm sorry to announce that by the time you read this, I'll be gone. It's not your fault, but the dreams came back hard after the interview. It's much harder for me to deal with it, but last night's dream was the final straw. The skin taker came to me in that damn hat, stating that my son has a special place. I saw a part of my boy's face on the upper right side of the hat, looking at me with a glassy kind of stare. A single tear rolled down his face, and I heard him screaming in agony. It broke my heart. I can't take the dreams anymore. I can't handle it, and I want you to understand that you must go on. Jody told me about your interview with her, and she is planning on coming to New York for the funeral. I told her that she should forget about it, but since you came around, it's been harder for her to forget. I have to cease this. I'm so sorry. Really I am. Sincerely, Michael Colon. Because of this letter, the death of this man, and the nightmares I have trudged up, I am ceasing this project and going home. It's unfortunate to have to quit this, being that I was far ahead in it, but it is the right thing to do. Day 30. My name is deleted. Censored was a close friend of mine, and he asked for me to post it here. Recently he killed himself, or it was a homicide. I'm not so sure. Police said that he was working on something, but when the interviewed were questioned, they never said a word, because they knew better than to rat him out and trudge up more nightmares for themselves. Censored was a wonderful man in life. His girlfriend, who is expecting a baby sometime within the year, is broken up about this. I am sorry to say that in his message to me, he wrote that he met with one final person after the Michael Colin interview. He stated it was a man named Adrian Grimes, Emerson Grimes' nephew. He asked for me to put the interview on here. This interview was made via telephone. Censored. Is this Adrian Grimes? Adrian Grimes. This is he. May I ask what this is about? Censored. This is about the show Candle Cove. Ag. That show's censored. Yes. AG. Look, I don't know who this is, but my uncle has been dead for years. His body was never found, and I swear to you that if this is some prank, it's not funny. Censored. It's not a prank at all, I swear. AG. Look, you want to know about that show. My uncle was a sick man. He told me about it, and I watched it. Now I will tell you that every single person that was on that show is in their own place on it. I, however, want nothing to do with it. I got to see the making of one episode. All right, one episode. It never got aired, and I hope it never will either. Censored. Season 2, meaning either episodes 5 or 6. AG. What the hell are you talking about? No. This happened after the season ended. I breathed a long, peaceful sigh. Oh man, this is great. You guys, the air, the stars. It's hey, Don, where are you? I screamed, falling like a dead weight. He grinned wider, gripping my leg like a trophy. I knew that soon it would be my head he was holding. He raised his axe once more, but I managed to claw my way under his legs, gripping what I tripped over, hopefully to smash his head in. To my surprise, however, it was a wooden crate containing the fireworks Don brought. With little effort, the toadman grabbed my stump and pulled me up, raising me up so I was eye level with him. His bubbled complexion brought pow from my stomach, but I instinctively dropped the crate downwards onto his head. He dropped me, grunting in surprise. I knew it was my only chance. I pulled away his axe, tossing it and reaching into my pocket. I slipped out the grinding stone that I carried for farm work and scraped it against the crate, sparking the fireworks. With all I could, I crawled away and turned. The toadman gave me a look of utmost spite as he combusted, the lights spraying a shower of viscera on the area. I lost consciousness. The look burned into my mind. I woke up sometime later in a cot outside my home. My parents searched the woods for me and carried me back. With surgical help, the town doctor cleaned and mended the wound. His eyes scanned what little of the horizon he could see beyond the cornfield. I've heard tell of them, figured they were a children's tale. Frank shifted his weight, adjusting the rigid stick on which he rested his arms. That they may be, but there's truth in the stories. Crows are real enough, even if one scarcely hears of them in anything but legend these days. Back when their terror was at hand, they descend on these fields and eat their fill, leaving precious little for the folk who toiled with the seed. It brought a hardship on the land, leaving everyone desperate. My arms still hurt. Frank. Frank rolled his eyes. We're talking, ain't we? Have a rest, hell. Sit down, for all that matters now. Thanks, Frank. Jed dropped from his post and crumpled to the ground, suddenly looking very much like a lifeless pile of rags. So what happened? Though he opened his mouth to speak, Frank hesitated. On any other night, the words were just a story. But on this night, they might be something more. You keep a listen for anything amiss, all right? Jed nodded, and Frank resumed his tale. It was a dark time, to be sure. dark enough that some reckoned they might employ a darkness of their own. He closed his eyes and recited the secret verse, known only to those who stood watch in the field. Gathered they the walls of green, left to dry by day, shaped into a sentinel in clothing was the haste set upon tormented fields against the demon's call. Given life by darkness, the men of naught but struck gave to them the hallowed charge upon the darkest night, paid the price for vigilance. And absent was the light gathered, they wanted the young for empty demons caught, taken by the darkness, the men of naught but straw men, whispered Jed. Straw men? Like us, Frank. Frank's expression grew colder as he shook his head. Don't you be thinking that way. The straw men were something other than living, Jed. Scared the crows away, they did. But at a terrible cost. They were dead inside, see, stayed where they were meant to, like statues, save for one night a year when they'd come alive and have a reaping. Only it weren't corn they took away, but one child, left outside past sunset. Children are outside past sunset all the time, Frank. Not on this night. Frank hissed. He lowered his voice even further. On this night, the children wear masks. The straw men can't see those who hide their eyes, not unless they look at the straw men first. Jed fell silent, chastised. The sky had darkened considerably, with only the most tenacious rays of the dying light still piercing the walls of corn. Somewhere in the distance, a woman's voice called out for her son. Hey, Frank, what? I still don't get it. Frank. Frank sighed yet again. Don't get what? Why we're out here. Why we got to stand here like this. Why folks laugh at us. I mean, we're straw men, right? Frank. In response, Frank launched a kick at his companion's leg. Oh, www. What did you go and do that for? If you was a straw man, Frank said, do you reckon that would have hurt? You're flesh and blood, Jed. So how can you be a straw man? Well, I mean, it's pretend, ain't it? I fill my clothes with straw and play make-believe, right? Frank tapped a gloved hand against the side of his hat. Up here, it might be pretend, but here, he thumped his fist against his chest, making his stuffed shirt crackle. It's all real. That's what matters. Jed, he swung his arm wide, gesturing to the fields around them. You want to know why you're out here. It's so that fear don't come back. Even one child being taken keeps that terror festering, keeps folks in mourning. Might as well have the crows back. But if someone goes to stand watch, then the straw men don't come walking. They can all rest easy. They can laugh at their fear and get on with their lives. Now do you get it? I get it. Frank, Jed hurriedly replied. I'm here to stand watch. I get it. Good. Now, back up on your post. We got a long night ahead. Jed retook his position, and Frank readjusted his own. The wind had died with the sunlight, leaving the cornfields completely still. Hey, Frank, shut up. Sorry. Jed closed his mouth. Only what happens to them? Frank, to the children. What children? You know, pushed Jed, the children that they take away. Frank turned to regard his companion. The poor boy was hardly out of his youth, with only the barest hint of stubble on his chin. Even in the darkness, an earnest innocence twinkled in his eyes. You sure you want to know, Jed? Jed turned to meet Frank's gaze. Yeah, Frank, I'm sure, as he had done before. Frank reached up to remove his hat. Only this time, his entire head came away, leaving a rigid cluster of yellow stemming from his shirt. They become straw men, Jed. They become straw men. Story 5. The Shadows of Samuel Craven. In the sleepy town of Windarm, a street where no one goes, a child of wondrous prying was deadened in crooked pose. His name was Samuel Craven, a boy no older than 10, sneaking out from the safety of his home, a reluctant one then. The breeze of the night engulfed him as he ran free and clear to his doom, to a place which never existed, but he'd found it, no less, in his room. At night the shadows would scurry and paint pictures of streets on his wall, as he'd lie in his bed and observe a place where children stood tall. Each night the pictures grew stronger as slivers of dark made the scene. A street of cobble and houses, blowing windows, thatched roofs, and oak beams on his wall. Shadowed children would scamper, playing late and loud as they please, while Samuel lay there in envy of the place he so wanted to be. For his parents seemed strict and distant, far removed from the freedom he yearned, and of course Samuel wished for an instance where the rules of grown-ups could be spurned. Night upon night he was beckoned by the children playing tag on the wall, and the rules of his parents rang harshly in his ears, in his soul, in him all. On the 5th night the picture froze sharply, and the shadows of children turned round to face Samuel Craven, with wide grins in place, made of dark and of light, which was drowned. "Come with us, dear Samuel," they whispered. "You can play with us now in our street, and you never need worrying about grown-ups again, for here parents and children shan't meet." Young Samuel did not have to answer, for he leapt from his bed with glee through the wall where empty eyes watched him, open-handed and whispering, "Be free," as the thin shadowed hands of the children grabbed his own and pulled him within. The world turned gray to poor Samuel, and his vision began to dim. "Welcome home, my dear little boy," said a voice cracked with age, wheezed and thin, and as his sight was encroached by the darkness, Samuel saw what had spoken to him. A figure stood at the end of the street, something tall and spindly of limb, wearing rags of gray, dirtied fabric, and an absence of life there within. Its eyes were putrid and glassy, and its mouth gaped with rotten lament against those with joy and childhood and of people and of time misspent. "Come closer, dear Samuel. Do not be afraid, for I am seeking little, nothing more, than to keep you away from the grown-ups of that world you have found such a bore." "Look at the children who stay here," said the figure with bony hands raised, and as Samuel shuddered with a chill in the air, he knew the grave choice he had made, for the children played not, so to speak, but were frozen in crooked positions, like scarecrows warding off the unwanted. The figures prized acquisitions, mouths stitched tightly in place, eyes pleaded and ears strained to listen, as the shrouded vagabond figure walked amongst the deadlocked children. They too once wished to run far away from those who were old and stern, and of course I granted that wish by making shadowed statues of them. The vagabond moved ever closer, and Samuel saw in its round opaque eyes there was nothing of love about them, only pain and a well of demise, as its rotten coughed upon garments ruffled quickly in the bleak night air. Samuel turned to face his bedroom, running fast to the safety held there, but his movements were quickly restricted by the cracks and creaks all around of the hands of petrified children, shadowed fragments of life now death-bound. Scared little Samuel struggled and cried out as loud as he could, but quickly his screams were muffled by fingers like rigid warped wood. "Now is the time," said the vagabond, showing his teeth white hand bled, while slithered hands gripped the boy in place. The figure held needle and thread. Darting in front of small Samuel, the needle glistened with delight, and the children forced a smile on his face with their hands, withered and slight, as their fingers pulled at the corners of his mouth and prodded inside. Samuel cried in desperate terror, tasting charcoal and rancid-skinned hide. The vagabond now simply reveled as he pierced helpless Samuel's top lip, pulling needle through skin and followed by thread before laughing and gargling on spit. Coldness now took young Samuel as his skin began to fade. Like the other children around him, life and hope reneged. "I will seal up your lips and take your light," said the vagabond, holding the needle, "and add you to my own gaggle of souls, filled with hate for those who are feeble." As the needle hovered and danced, tears streamed down Samuel's face. To be back in his cozy bedroom, find his steps and simple retrace, that was all he could think of. But now nothing more could be done, for as his skin turned to shadow and his eyes began to burn, the vagabond stared intently, spit drooling from open-gaped lips, and with one thrust forward, the needle drove straight to extinguish the child's heart by eclipse. Howls of pain and anguish cut through the cold, darkened street. But it was not young Samuel who yelled in pain. It was the vagabond who had to retreat, for standing shoulder to shoulder, dragging the figure with all of their might, were Samuel's parents, emboldened by their son's cries for help in the night. They pulled at the creature's limbs, knocking needle from sworded hand, as the shadowed children creaked forward, following their master's commands. "Take their light now, my children," said the vagabond, seething with hate. "These grown-ups must be punished, stitch their lips, and seal their fate." Samuel lay on the cobble, crying and desperate for home, as the vagabond threw both his parents to the ground. Next to their son, they cradled their boy's head softly and whispered, "Don't be afraid," as the shadowed children surrounded, open-eyed with fingers like blades. But looking at young helpless Samuel, something stirred in each shadowed face, of memories of home and of love, of a forgotten and once lived-in place. The memory of family came flooding like a tide of bitter regret, of sleeping in darkness for centuries and being snatched from warm, comfy beds. Slowly the children cracked onward as the vagabond closed in tight, yet not to assist their captor, but to stop him with all their might. A sea of shadowed child fingers pulled and clawed at the rags of the vagabond, once their master, who'd sewn each of their stitchings and gags. Samuel's parents did not need to ask for one more second of time, and grabbed their son as quick as they could, fleeing the scene of the crime. As the figure tore down his children, each one their stitching pulled out, he rasped and screeched with venom at the family who'd caused such a rout. His horde of children lay on the floor, wide-eyed and mouths ripped open, as he flung himself towards the three who'd left his street empty and broken. Panting and rushing and heaving, Samuel's parents flew to the edge of where the street now ended, and bedroom made safety his pledge. The vagabond soon quickly followed as the family leapt within, to their house and the room they had chosen for their son to play and sleep in. As the figure drew ever closer, a seething wretch of the night, Samuel's mother leapt to the corner and simply turned on the light. No shadows were there to be feared of, no vagabond, children, or street, nothing which spoke of the danger which their boy had taken to meet. The years moved on with Samuel, though he would never forget his mistake. running from those who loved him to strangers who'd promises make. And now young Samuel is grown up, his daughter asleep in her room as shadows and whispers spill over from the street. The vagabond's tomb